Chicken on a stick.
Hi, I'm Patrick,
I'm Maggie.
and we are Chicken on a Stick. Welcome to another episode.
Welcome, welcome.
Today is a Maggie choice, and
That's
it took
right.
a while to come up with the movie we were going to watch.
Yes. I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to watch and how to watch it because some things you have to rent and buy and the streaming thing, it was a mess. But anyway,
Yeah, because we don't own like 500
5
movies or
million.
whatever it is.
5 million movies.
But she finally settled on one, and that's going to be 2006's Little Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss Sunshine.
So we'll talk about the movie more in just a moment.
Grandpa,
What?
I don't want to be a loser.
You're not a loser. Where'd you get the idea you're a loser?
Because Dad hates losers.
Whoa. Back up a minute. You know what a loser is? A real loser is somebody that's so afraid of not winning, they don't even try. Now, you're trying, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you're not a loser. We're gonna have fun tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
We can tell them all to go to hell.
Okay, so Little Miss Sunshine from 2006. Just a little bit of general information about the film itself. It is the directorial debut of a husband-wife team, Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris,
Very
who
cute.
they've done a few films and a series on Hulu. Most notably, ones that I know that we've definitely seen was 2017's Battle of the Sexes.
Right.
I definitely went and saw that in theaters. Emma Stone, Steve Carell, about Billie Jean King, the tennis star.
Yep.
And
Really
then
good movie.
2019's Netflix Living with Yourself, which is a Paul Rudd movie where he's got clones of himself. I don't really remember that movie at all. I just do know we watched it.
I think that if anybody should have a million clones, it should definitely be Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
I think everyone would be okay with that.
And then the screenplay was also written by a first-time writer, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but Michael Arndt?
Aren't.
I don't know. A-R-N-D-T?
Yep,
Aren't?
that's how I'd say it.
He's done quite a few things, but just to kind of go over his like notable writing ones is so Little Miss Sunshine was his 1st, followed up by the excellent Toy Story 3.
Oh.
2013's Oblivion, Tom Cruise movie. Also in 2013, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire.
Really?
2015's A Walk in the Woods. 2015's Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Oh, wow.
And then coming up this year, The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Very excited for that.
So he's done quite a few things, and he's got some other credits for things on other like Disney movies and stuff. But interesting enough.
That is interesting.
Now, Little Miss Sunshine has a fantastic cast. Tons of people, just kind of run through them very quickly. Greg Kinnear, Steve Carell, Toni Collette, Paul Dano, Abigail Breslin, Bryan Cranston are kind of like the big ones. And then, of course, because he passed away recently as of the time we're recording this, Alan Arkin.
The great Alan Arkin. Such a funny guy.
Yeah.
And it is so fun to see a very, very young Abigail Breslin and also a young Paul Dano.
Yeah, so this movie, when it came out, was received very well. And it was a small independent movie. It was filmed over 30 days. It took less than a month for them to shoot this. And then it kind of blew up. It was nominated all over the place in all sorts of award shows and stuff for many things. But just to stick with like the really big one for the Academy Awards, it was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated and won Best Supporting Actor for Alan Arkin. It was nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Abigail Breslin, and then Best Original Screenplay, which it won.
Okay.
So out of the 4 awards it was nominated for at the Oscars, it did win 2 of them.
And it was so great for Abigail to be nominated for something at such a young age.
Yeah.
Because she really showed her acting chops in that movie. And I'm so glad that it was so well received.
Yeah, and I don't know... I'm not sure if I saw this in 2006 or not.
I don't really remember.
I don't know if at that time I was like really watching a bunch of movies, because I was in the middle of high school at that point. You know, I'm so old.
You baby.
So it may have came out just before I was like really watching movies. But I do know a handful of years later, when I was sort of engrossed in the cinema world and I was watching like loads of shows and podcasts and review things and movie trivia contests and stuff, it would get brought up all the time as being great. And when I was in like the bulk of buying my huge collection, often when I heard these people who I followed be like, oh, this movie, I love this movie, or mention something, I would go out and buy that movie.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure Little Miss Sunshine was one of those movies. It got brought up for some reason, people talked about it or whatever it was, and everybody was like really high on it. So I was like, okay. And
I'm gonna get
went
it.
out and bought it. And I watched it and I was like, yeah, that was great.
Yep. It was really, really a good movie, and I love the cover on the Blu-ray DVD. Can I say DVD?
It's a Blu-ray, but sure.
I'm
There's
learning.
a difference. Okay?
I know. You correct me.
Don't
a
make
lot.
me sound like an elitist.
But I love the color of it. It's so vibrant, and you get just a sense from all of the characters' pictures on the cover that it's going to be a really good movie and really full of heart. So I love the way that it looks. I love a good cover.
Yeah.
So, very, very cute.
The movie, watching it this time, because we just did Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and that came out in 2004. So a few years later, this comes out, and watching this, I almost feel like it felt visually, so like the cinematography felt at times very Wes Anderson inspired.
1,000,000%.
There's ways that the actors are like positioned, or just the shots are. We have somebody really close, and then some people like off centered in the background or whatever. And it felt like if the colors were a bit more vibrant and like popped a little bit more, and maybe you rewrote the dialogue a little bit, could have been made by Wes Anderson.
1,000,000%. And there's a lot of dry, dark humor as well that I could, see obviously in a Wes Anderson film. And for what it is still very colorful. Like they do a really good job with how they set those scenes up. But yeah, it definitely has Wes Anderson feels to it.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of get into this movie. It's not a particularly long movie, so if you've never actually seen it, it's under 2 hours. It's like an hour and 43 minutes or something like that. So it's a very quick, easy watch, and again, it's quite good.
It's a great movie, and yeah, it's not too long, not too short. But when I was thinking about what movies I wanted to do, I was trying to find something that was summery, like something when you think about summer, you get a feeling for a certain movie or something. So this just felt like bright and summery, and
when it's really a dark movie.
when it's really a dark movie, yeah.
It does say sunshine in the title.
It does. Anyway.
Okay, so to hop into the movie itself, we open up and we see this girl's eyes. She's wearing glasses. We just see her eyes. She's watching something on TV, and we kind of linger on her eyes for a second. And we find out that she is watching a Miss America beauty contest hosted by Regis Philbin.
Yeah.
I wanted to try and figure out what year this was supposed to be, because it felt like maybe it was supposed to be a little bit older, but I
got that feeling.
I had no idea who Miss Tennessee, I believe, is who it is that wins. I don't know what her name actually was, or if they said it, so it made it much harder to actually try and look up very quickly. I just kind of gave up on.
I do remember that he was an MC.
No, yeah, that was a real thing.
Yeah,
it wasn't
yeah.
like filmed for it. It was an
Yeah.
actual footage from a real
Pageant.
Miss America pageant. So she keeps rewatching sort of the moment that Miss Tennessee is announced as Miss America.
She's getting crowned.
And she's reenacting her sort of like expression of
gosh.
shock and joy, I suppose.
Kind of like the way that people like pretend to accept like a Grammy or an Oscar in the shower kind of situation. She's like,
do you do that?
I've heard a lot of people do that.
Who?
They practice their acceptance speech.
Like actors?
No, people.
Just normal people?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard anybody ever say that
I've
in
heard
the
that.
shower they practice getting an
Yeah.
acceptance
It's
speech.
a thing.
Okay, well, if you do that, leave a comment and let us know that you practice getting an award that you'll, maybe never get.
But it definitely gives off that she's wanting to put herself in the videotape and just feel what it would be like to win.
Yeah. We then cut to seeing a man giving a speech about being a winner and a 9-step program of being a winner. And like, if you do these steps, you're gonna win. Don't ever give up. Blah blah blah. I gotta tell you, this reminds me so much of a person named Tony Robbins, who is a motivational speaker person.
Oh, does he have like an MLM or like a pyramid scheme or something?
No. Yes. I don't know how to answer that question. The reason I know that he even exists is, for one thing, when I was going to therapy, my therapist said, you should listen to his stuff. It's very like positive thinking and motivational stuff and blah blah blah. And I tried to, and I gotta tell you, that guy sucks. Sucks. He does the one thing that most places that are going for a younger crowd in recent times. So if you're listening, around the time that this happened, there has been a guy in the news recently who came big for saying he's a top G and he has like an academy for where you can learn how to get a lot of monies and drive Bugattis. Although he says Bugattis in like a really strange way. I forget how he says it exactly, but it's really dumb. Anyway, that was his whole thing. Is he's like, oh, I'm so successful. You can be successful. Be just like me. Sign up for this program, and I'll tell you how to get money.
Oh, that's
exactly the bullshit Tony Robbins did.
Yeah.
Which is, he would, when I listened to his stuff, and if you listen to it and it works for you, whatever. But anytime I tried to listen to his shit, it was like a 40-minute not even a podcast, just like him speaking
Audio.
at some sort of thing. And he would talk and be like, here's the time that I overcame a failure or something. And he'd go on to this tangent story for 35 minutes. And then at the end be like, and if you want to learn the lesson I learned, buy my book. Or some bullshit.
Oh, God.
And it's the same, like, for an early YouTube crowd in like, I don't know, 2009, 2010. If you remember Ty Lopez, who would be like, I got knowledge. He'd always take a video and he'd have Lamborghinis behind him.
Oh, God.
And be like, if you want to be like that, I read 3 books a day. I like knowledge. And then it shows garage and it had like 6 bookshelves just full. Same shit. He'd be like, you want to be successful? You want to be good? Do this stuff. Sign up for my program.
Oh, that's insufferable.
It is the dumbest shit, and people sign up for it, and these people will get rich off of it. It's crazy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a couple of self-help books sitting up on my desk. I love a self-help book, but the oh, you want to be just like, oh, you want to be rich, you want to blah blah do this.
I think there's a little bit of a difference between a self-help book and somebody going, "I'm great. You want to be like me? Pay me, and
Give
I'll
me
show
your
you
money."
how to do it."
Yeah.
Because that's not how it works
These people.
generally. Anyway, so we get introduced to this guy. He's doing that. He's giving this whole spiel about this 9-step program. And then when he ends, we hear some clapping, and it's revealed he's in like this tiny classroom.
Yeah.
And there's only like 9 random people there. Not exactly super
It
successful.
looks like the smallest little conference ballroom in like a small hotel. Like
Not even. It quite literally
Yeah.
looks like a classroom.
in like a La Quinta Inn.
Sure. We then cut and we see this teenager, dyed pitch black hair.
Yeah.
Very much going through that
Shaggy.
like emo phase of the mid 2000s.
It screams you.
I never dyed my hair.
I
so-
wouldn't. Well, no, but I know you had the emo shaggy hair and
Yeah,
the tude.
the two.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who's ever once said that. Anyway, we see him and he's working out. He's doing some like bench presses, some push-ups and stuff. And then we see him. He goes over to like this wall. And he's got like this long ass calendar. It says like 400 and something days on it, and he marks it off. Although I don't think that can be right. I might have not read the number right. I thought it said 400 and something, but that doesn't quite line up with a line of dialogue in a little bit. So it might be 200 and something, maybe. Just going based off how many days there are in a year and whatever.
Right.
So it might be less than that, but I thought it said 400 something. Which it would also kind of be a funny joke if it was actually 400, and then the thing his dad says later is wrong to just show like
How
more
much-
of the reason why he doesn't like his dad, says he doesn't give a shit.
I like that. I'm gonna go with that thought. Like he didn't even notice.
Right. We then see an older man lock himself into like a bathroom or a bedroom, and he breaks out some drugs and he's chopping it up on a little, not a mirror, but every time you see somebody do this, it's always some sort of reflective surface.
Always, yeah.
It's not necessarily always a mirror, but it's like a little
Like a tray.
pocket tray thing.
Little
yeah.
decorative tray.
I guess you can just carry a cocaine cutting table with you or whatever.
I know I do.
But he's doing some hardcore drugs. And then we cut to a woman driving, and she's on her phone, and she's talking with someone, being like, I gotta go to the hospital, I gotta go see him. No, I'm not smoking, although she is smoking, so she's lying to who she's talking to. We find out that she's headed to a hospital to go pick up someone. She gets to the hospital, we find out she's picking up her brother, played by Steve Carell. And the woman who's there, it's Toni Collette who's going to pick him up. And he's there because he tried to kill himself. And they're basically just saying, okay, you can take him, but, he can't be left alone. Don't let him near sharp objects.
Yeah.
That sort of general stuff you would expect people to probably tell you. So she takes him home. They get home. She says, hey, Uncle Frank's here. So we find out his name's Frank.
Yeah.
Toni Collette's character, I think her name's said maybe once or twice throughout the whole thing.
I was gonna say, I don't really remember what her name was.
And it's Cheryl.
Cheryl.
We get introduced to the teenager we saw earlier. His name is Dwayne.
That's Paul Dano.
He's not speaking. That's played by Paul Dano. And then we hear the little girl. Her name is Olive. Abigail Breslin when she was very, very young.
Very little.
And then the other, Alan Arkin is just referred to as Grandpa. We
Yeah.
do figure out his name at one point later on. It's Edwin, I believe. But he's just referred to as Grandpa the whole time. Like, I feel like most people say that around
Yeah.
their kids anyway. So that's basically, that is what your name is.
That's your name.
Greg Kinnear comes home. He is the father. His name is Richard. He's the one who was doing the 9-step program of being a winner,
Yeah. Little Mr. Motivational speaker.
if you want to call it that. Cheryl tells Dwayne that Frank is going to be sleeping in their room together because Frank is not supposed to be left alone, just in case. Also, when Frank is alone in a room, he cannot shut the door, so he can't like lock himself in and try and end his life again. Dwayne's not really happy about it, but he's also this where you realize he's not speaking.
Right. He does not talk.
It's not said yet, but they do talk to him, and he just kind of shakes his head, nods his head, that sort of thing. He's just not talking. They sit down to have dinner. Cheryl's bought like some KFC or generic chicken, something. She's got a whole like bucket of chicken that they bring in. The whole family gets in there. Grandpa comes in and he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me that we're eating chicken again?
Yeah.
We eat chicken all the goddamn time." So apparently they're always eating out at this chicken place.
Yeah.
He was Richard says, "Well, you could start cooking your own food," and he references this retirement home that he lived at, that they would always make different meals and stuff.
Yeah.
But he got kicked out of the retirement home, so he can't go back.
Yeah. You got banned, Grandpa.
Yeah. We learn at this point as well that Dwayne is not speaking because he's taken a vow of silence.
It's also fun. It was also really funny to note too, while Cheryl, the mom, while she's like getting dinner ready, Dwayne and Frank and was it the dad or Grandpa? Like 3 of them were just sitting at the table, like left unattended, and they were just so awkward and didn't know how to communicate to to each other. So they had one moment where they couldn't take the silence, and I think one of them got up to leave and get her, or go get Olive.
Yeah. And we learn that the reason he's doing a vow of silence is because he wants to join the Air Force as a test pilot. So his thing is he's just not going to speak until he reaches that goal.
Yes.
Which in some way seems to have something to do with German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. I'm sure I mispronounced that. That's one I can never pronounce correctly. But he gets brought up once at some point where Uncle Frank's just like, "You're silent because of Nietzsche?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Whatever
Alright,
floats your
whatever.
boat.
Sure.
I think it's like he's so determined and he wants to accomplish this goal so much that he's just gonna bear down, buckle down, and this is his way maybe of when he reaches his goal, his reward is that he can talk again.
Yeah. We also learn at this point that Richard is trying to reach this guy named Stan Grossman about a book deal for his 9-step thing. He's been trying to work this book deal, but he can't reach this guy, so he's kind of like in a limbo of not sure exactly what's happening, even though he keeps telling everybody it's a done deal. It's definitely going to happen. Now, we do find at this point that Dwayne does communicate, but he has like a little notebook that he writes down in. He is not very conservative on these pages. He just writes big words in the middle. At one point he just says, Frank asks him, like, "Who do you hang out with?" And he says, "No one."
Yeah.
He's like, "You don't have any friends?" And he just shakes his head no. And then he writes down, "I hate everyone."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, well, what about your family?" And he just underlines everyone. And he's like, "Oh, okay."
Okay.
Okay.
See you, little angsty teenage guy there.
Grandpa is Richard's father. So they all sit down to eat. This is the moment that I mentioned where on the poster board, I said poster board, I don't know, calendar, whatever it was that Dwayne marked off on, Richard says he hasn't spoken in 9 months.
Right.
Now, again, without like freeze framing it to see if at what number he actually crossed off, I thought it was 400 something. But if it was 400 something and Richard just says it's only been 9 months, obviously those don't quite align, because 400 something would be over a year long, which could be an indication of like, well, you're too busy in your own world that you're not really even paying attention that your son literally has not spoken over a year.
Right.
So that could always be a thing.
I'd like to think that that's it, because you can tell through just Dwayne's mannerisms that he cannot stand when his dad pulls out all of this inspirational, motivational mumbo jumbo. You
Yeah.
know, he's doing everything in his power not to roll his eyes back into his head. So, yeah, it would make sense that he would resent him for not paying attention.
Right. We also, at this point, Olive gets upstairs to sit down, and in true kid fashion, and I have a fun story that can go along with this.
Oh.
We do notice when Frank was brought in that his wrists are wrapped up. They've got like gauze or bandages on them, so it's clear that when he tried to end his life, he slit his wrists.
Right.
Olive just walks and goes, "What happened to your wrists?"
Yeah.
And Cheryl's like, we don't, he got in an accident, we don't need to talk about it. And then, even though being told we don't need to talk about it, she still asks, what kind of accident did you get into? This is funny just because anybody with little kids would probably tell you that they've got similar stories to where something like this happened. We don't have any kids. But my cousin's child, when he was very young, he was old enough to speak, so he must have been, I don't know, 4 or 5, something along those lines. And I'm pretty sure it was at their wedding. Although, does that even make sense? Was he that old when they... I don't know. But my uncle has a thing where I don't know the whole story or anything. I've never really asked. It's just like it's been that way my entire life. But one of his eyes goes off in a direction because of something that happened.
Huh.
And they apparently told my cousin's kid not to, like...
Don't say anything, don't
like,
stare.
Like it's kind of rude, don't stare or whatever.
Right.
Very first chance he got, he literally goes, "What happened to your eye?"
I know.
It's just like it's completely harmless. I feel like I know for a fact when I was growing up as a kid, we had a neighbor. I would have probably been like 8 or 9 at the time. This neighbor kid was definitely a teenager. He might have been like 13, 14, something like that. He wasn't significantly older than us, but he was older than us. And he just lived close by, so we kind of saw him every now and then. We weren't like hanging out all the time or anything like that. But he had a fake eye.
Oh.
And we didn't ask him what... I don't think we asked him what happened, but we were just... Because we were slightly older, our question was, can you take it out?
Yeah.
And he would. He would pop it out.
Ew.
It was a little... It wasn't a full eye. It wasn't like a glass eye or anything. It was like a half, and it was almost like...
You touched it?
Like an egg white sort of consistency.
Ew.
Like sort of spongy... I don't know how to really explain it.
If you told me that story before, I
I've told you
repressed
that
it.
before.
Because that's disgusting.
I'm pretty sure we got him to like hold his socket open, but
Oh,
you couldn't
my
see
God.
anything. You couldn't see anything. It was just black.
That's going to give me nightmares.
It's a good time.
I was going to come up with a story that was far less gross than that.
That's not even gross.
That's so gross. I have an eyeball thing. Zero
That's
tolerance policy. I remember when I was a kid being at an airport with my family, and there was a little old lady that sat down in the seats across from us. And I guess it's if you have hip problems or something. I've seen people before wear like an orthopedic shoe to balance out. So like one has a wedge in it, and then you have your regular shoe. This little old lady sat down in front of us, and she had like a very big wedge on her shoe. And out loud I said, "Mom, she looks like a Spice Girl. She's got platform heels." And everyone looked, and my mom was like, "Shh, don't say that." I was like, "Oh, but it looks cool."
Yeah.
Anyway, kids
say the darndest things.
say the darndest things.
So at this point, she's asking Frank about it, and Frank is pretty open. He's like, "I'm fine to tell the story if you're like okay with me telling." And Cheryl's like, "I'll take on the responsibility. I'll explain it." And she explains that Frank tried to kill himself. And then she asks, like, why? And he says, "Well, I was unhappy." And Richard's trying to stop him, like, "I don't think this is appropriate." And Frank sort of, at this point, you've seen him give some glances to Richard, kind of like, "Dude, you suck."
Yeah.
So even though Richard's like, "I don't think this is appropriate for a 7-year-old," he still tells it. It's a long story of sort of domino effect of things in Frank's life, where he explains that, well, we find out a few things about him. One is he says that basically he fell in love with somebody who didn't love him back. But it wasn't just because of that. It was because he fell in love with a student of his. He was a college professor, the number one Proust professor at this in America or something. He says this like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie. It's used for one moment, like
He's very proud of it.
But he says, so I fell in love with the student. We got together, things were cool, but then the student fell in love with a different teacher who teaches the same exact thing that I do, but he was the number 2, and so that upset me. And then, so I said some things, I got in trouble, I got fired from my job, then I got kicked out of my apartment, so I was living in a motel, but all of that was fine until I found out that the school board, or whoever decides this stuff, gave the other teacher this,
It's like a prestigious award, right?
no, like a grant or something.
Oh, right.
They gave him this money that I was expecting to have.
Right.
And then, so all of it just sort of spiraled down the drain, and that's why. So it's a very long, complicated story. You do find out at this point as well, is that Frank is gay.
Yes.
It was a male student. There are a few jokes. Well, I don't even know that they're necessarily jokes. There are a few jabs in this about him being gay. One, from Olive, who's again a 7-year-old girl, wouldn't know any better.
Yeah.
Who just is like, "You loved a boy? That's weird."
No, she was like, a boy? That's silly.
Yeah. So it's like an innocent
That's
thing.
innocent.
Like, that's like, ew, I don't like boys.
Yeah. Hers was okay. The stuff that the little snide comments here and there from the husband and sometimes grandpa, they're a little bit less innocent.
Yeah, Grandpa is much more.
He's old.
He said there's a line. He calls him just a homo at one point. I forget exactly what he says. He might say like, "Get a homo magazine" or something. No. He said he uses the F word in terms. For gay people. At one point, so. Once again, if you're put off by that sort of thing, I think we've talked about this before. There's one notch against this movie you might have. I don't hold that against film or movies. It's like
People
are
a lot.
like that. If you're telling a true story, that's what it's like. And in 2006, that's what it was like.
Yeah, that's what it. Not only was it 2006, that's what it's like, but you're also looking at the fact that this is a grandpa, and he's old and crotchety.
Yeah.
So that's his word that
he's
he's
old
gonna
enough that there's a line that he fought in World War II at one point, basically.
He still has Nazi bullets in his ass.
He's from a different generation.
I got Nazi bullets in my ass.
Yeah. And that's not to try and make an excuse or whatever before anybody wants to like come up and say that. You just have to understand the contextual points to it. And again, if you're writing a story and trying to make human characters, there are people like that. Yeah. So you have to deal with it.
He also balances out a lot with Frank to where, it's not necessarily coming out of a hateful place.
Yeah, none of it is out from a hateful place. At this point, Richard does butt in again and says that Frank gave up on himself, that he's a loser, only losers try and kill themselves. Frank just turns to Dwayne and asks, "Is he always like this?" And Dwayne just nods like, yes. So they have a little bonding moment there of being like, thinking Richard sucks, basically.
Yeah, he's the things that he says at the dinner table is so... Oh, it just made my blood boil. He's so set in the way that he thinks, and just anybody else's opinion does not register to him. So, killing yourself, you're a weak person.
Yeah.
This is a family of winners. You gotta be a winner, Olive. And she's just absorbing all of this like the little sponge that she is.
Yeah. We do find out at this point that Olive, part of the obsession with the beauty pageants is that over the summer or like a month before this, she went on a trip, took place in this local pageant,
She went to stay with her cousins.
was a runner-up in this pageant, and then there's a phone call, there's a voicemail on the phone on their answering machine from the Little Miss Sunshine pageant, and Olive goes to to listen to it really excitedly, and it's somebody just saying, so it's like her aunt or somebody calling saying, okay, that pageant where she became runner-up, well, the winner had to give up their crown because of diet pills.
Something about diet pills.
7-year-olds on diet pills. Just think
Jesus.
about that. This is not a child beauty pageant movie,
No.
by the way. It's pretty critical of them, actually.
Which
in,
is
in
good.
some pretty subtle ways. Like, this is your first indication of, like, they just throw out that some parent put their child on diet pills,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah, and I like I told you earlier, growing up, I had a good handful of friends that were doing beauty pageants, and at the time, obviously I wanted to do them too. I wanted to, look like how my friends looked and everything, but thankfully my parents didn't do that. We didn't have pageant money. That shit is expensive.
Yeah.
The dresses, the all of that stuff. And I told you earlier as well, a friend of mine, she had these things, because the kids these age, they're losing their baby teeth. This is the age the kids have little jack-o'-lantern smiles. A friend of mine that was
That
doing
is true.
yeah, it's cute. Friend of mine that was doing pageants, she had these things, and her parents spent, I want to say, like, if not right at around $1,000, maybe a little over, these things called cappers, and they're basically clip in dentures for like small children, so that basically it looks like they have, veneers, like they're perfectly straight and white.
That's wild.
And she had to take really, really, really good care of it. And her parents were like, if you do anything to those, they were very expensive.
That's crazy to me.
It's
I'll get
bonkers.
more into my thoughts on
Yeah.
beauty pageants later on, but that's just wild to me. So basically, because this girl had to forfeit her crown, Olive is the default winner from being runner-up, and
Right.
because of that, she has an invitation to be in the Little Miss Sunshine national pageant
Right.
in California,
Yeah.
Redondo Beach, California. That Sunday.
That
So,
Sunday.
like, 2 days away. It's like a Friday night, Friday evening. Sunday is when the pageant is at 3 p.m.
And they're in Albuquerque.
Yes, they're in New Mexico.
Yeah, she just lets out this solid high-pitched scream that everyone in the house kind of like covers their ears at. She's so excited and just runs out screaming, I won, I won, I won, I won, I won. Super, super excited.
So Richard and Cheryl almost immediately get into an argument with each other. Cheryl obviously wants to take Olive. This is a big deal. So they'll drive there, they'll fly there, they'll do whatever they need to actually get there. She'll drive the bus, I want to say he says like VW.
It's a VW,
so it's a
yeah.
Volkswagen bus. If she has to, but then she's like, but I can't drive stick, so you'll have to drive. And he's like, fine, I'll drive. But then they realize like they can't, like Grandpa would have to go because he's been helping her do her routine, but they can't leave Frank alone. They don't want to leave Dwayne because he's a teenager. He's younger than 18.
Yeah.
So they've kind of come to this compromise of, okay, we'll go. We will just drive straight there. No big deal. Everybody will go. Frank he's sort of suckered into it. They're like, come on, Frank, please. And he's like, fine. And then Dwayne is like, no.
Yeah, absolutely not.
no,
I'm not
no.
doing this.
Until Cheryl goes, if you go, I will give you permission to go to flight school.
Yeah.
And he begrudgingly shakes her hand
Yeah.
in a handshake agreement to be like, fine, cool, fine, I'll do it.
But he does take out his little notebook, jots something down. Frank leans over to read it to everybody, and it says, but I won't have fun.
They both, yeah. this is them kind of bonding a little bit as characters, in that Frank is like, me neither, pal.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
neither.
This is not going to be a fun time.
I'm also not gonna have fun.
Yeah, they very much so have chemistry now. The two of them.
And Paul Dano's great. This is... I'm not certain if this is the first thing I saw him in. But this came out just before There Will Be Blood. And There Will Be Blood in 2008? 2007, maybe award season 2008, so it might have came out in 2007. Obviously, There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men were like the two big movies vying for all the awards that season.
Yeah.
And Paul Dano was in the discussion of like best actor, best supporting actor that year. And then he's gone on since then to do tons of other things, and he's become more prominent now with a couple really, really big releases this last year, including The Batman, where he played the Riddler, and The Fabelmans, where he played a version of Steven Spielberg's father. Those are probably the two biggest mainstream movies where he is in a sort of leading role, not necessarily the lead character, but plays a big role in those movies.
I thought I saw something with him when he was really, really, really young, but I don't remember what it was.
I don't know. My first movie I've ever seen him was either this or There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
Neither of which I saw the year that they came out, so I
Right.
can't say for certain. It would have been different if I had seen them like in theaters or something. But Paul Dano and Steve Carell do great. They've got great chemistry together. Everybody in this movie actually really does. Everybody is great in this movie. So they're all in this bus. They're all driving. It's a yellow Volkswagen bus with a white roof.
Oh, before the bus. So after dinner, right? Everyone's getting ready to go to bed, and Frank Frank and Dwayne are he's getting ready to fall asleep, and Dwayne's laying in bed reading a book, probably Nietzsche, and Frank says to him, "Okay, good night, Dwayne." And he goes and lays down. And Dwayne just leans over, grabs his little notepad, writes something down, and then hands it over to him. And it just says, "Please don't kill yourself tonight." And Frank's like, "Nah, don't worry, bud. I wouldn't do that to you."
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Says, "Welcome to hell."
Yeah, welcome to hell. I thought that was funny. Please don't kill yourself while I'm asleep.
Yeah.
I don't need that kind of stress.
So we get a little bit of a sort of montage of just everybody in the bus driving around, whatever. When we cut back to any sort of dialogue, it's Grandpa saying, "I'm so tired. I'm tired. I'm so tired that if a girl came up and begged me to fuck her, I wouldn't because I'm so tired."
And naturally, everyone's like, "Grandpa!"
Luckily, Olive's listening to like a CD.
Yeah.
She's got headphones in, so nobody's hearing it. He leans over to Dwayne and goes, "Dwayne, let me tell you about life.
Yeah.
The one thing that's important is fuck as many women as you can." He's like, "Are you all ready, son? Are you?" And Dwayne just shakes his head. He's like, "No, you're 15. You should already be swimming in it. You're jailbait. They're jailbait. Once you turn 18, you can't have it anymore.
Then
the
it's 3 to
young
5.
stuff's the best stuff." And then he's like, "Yeah, at that point, you get 3 to 5.
And within every single breath, someone from the front of the car.
Only Richard. Richard's
Oh, yeah,
the
Richard.
only one who's like, "Dad, stop."
Stop saying things. And he's like, "What? I'm old. I can say whatever the fuck I
And
want."
then he goes, this is where he says, "I still have Nazi bullets in my
Yeah,
ass.
yeah,
I can
yeah.
say what I want."
I've earned my right to say whatever I want.
It's
It's just so funny the look on Dwayne's face the whole time because he did not ask for any advice. And he's
then-
like, "Please stop talking to me."
And at this point is when we actually find out what happened to the retirement home. Is that he got kicked out of the retirement home because he started snorting heroin.
Yes.
And Frank goes, "Really?" And he goes, "I'm old. What's
Yeah.
it?" Oh, no, Frank goes, "That stuff will kill you." He goes, "I'm old. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die anyway."
Exactly. Everything going against like what he's doing with his life. He's like, "I've earned it. I'm
Yeah.
here. I can do it. I can do whatever the fuck I want."
During all of this, Olive takes her headphones off, turns back to Grandpa and goes, "What are you talking about?" And he just goes, "Politics." She goes, "Oh," and then puts the headphones
Yeah.
back on.
She's like, "Ew, I'm not interested in that."
Good cover.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
And as soon as she puts the headphones back on, he leans back over to Dwayne and goes, "Trust me, fuck as many as he can.
Fuck them all. Fuck all the women. Hilarious.
After this scene, which is just like that's probably the scene that won Alan Arkin.
Yeah.
Arkin
Such a
Award.
great
It's
scene.
it's such a good scene.
So funny.
They stop at this little like diner to get some breakfast, and we already kind of had a sense that there's money struggles because Richard, while doing speaking arrangements, clearly not very successful because in the one we saw there was only like 9 people. But he's trying to get this book off the ground, but he hasn't yet, so he's not bringing in any money. Only Cheryl's working. We heard during their argument of, like, we can't afford a plane, so we can't afford this, yada, yada, whatever. While they're here, Olive asks, how much can we spend? And she goes, anything under $4. Which, in this day and age, if you told me, well, we're going to go get breakfast, but only if it's under $4, I'd go, okay, then we might as well not go anywhere. There's no way. No way. But in 2005, 2006, sure.
I don't know. I think a plate of waffles alone would be like $12.
Maybe. Well, now, maybe. Back then, no way.
It was really cute, though, because you can tell the way that Olive, she's scanning the menu, and then the way that she, like, just so nonchalantly asks, you know that it's not the first time that they've gone through this. So she, like, knows the routine. What side of the menu can I look at? Yeah,
and then everybody, the waitress comes over. They start to order their food.
Can you get breakfast for under $4 at McDonald's?
No.
Oh.
Well, maybe if you just ordered, like, only a sausage biscuit or something.
Oh.
That might be, like,
$3.
Wow. Yeah. They all start to order. Again, they're ordering things that I feel like in this time frame would never be
that
like
cheap.
Would not be under $4 or would just be barely under $4. They're getting like, get me this with a black coffee. Get me this with a certain type of drink. Get me, do you have a fruit platter or whatever? And do you have a chamoy or whatever?
Yeah.
Chamoy's
That's
spicy.
That's spicy
not
sauce.
drink. What did he say? Chamomile?
Oh, chamomile tea.
Chamomile, yeah. Chamoy. I don't know. You're getting in my head with all your spices.
That's very different.
Don't drink a glass of
Don't drink chamoy.
chamoy, I guess.
What's funny though about all of them ordering is that everybody seems to be ordering like what they're in the mood for. Dwayne does take out his pocket notebook and he just writes garden salad on it, or like a side salad kind of thing.
And no drink.
No drink.
He's gonna just raw
dog that salad. Which made, like, I didn't think about it at the time, but now talking about it, that was probably, he's trying to get the absolute cheapest thing so that maybe his sister can enjoy her meal a little bit better, and the parents don't have to worry about it.
And then Olive is like, okay, can I get a waffle? And what does a la mode mean?
What's a la mode?
And the waitress is like, oh, that just means it comes with ice cream. And she's like, okay, a la mode then.
She gets so excited, her face just lights up.
And Frank says, you know, a la mode in French actually means of the time or something.
What did that mean?
It was about like a fashion thing.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Of fashion. Something of fashion.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. It has literally nothing to do with putting ice cream on top of things.
Just him being a little smarty pants.
Yeah, just him subtly reminding you again that he's like a college professor. Right. But after she orders the ice cream, Richard goes, basically just fat shames his daughter.
Yeah. Real piece of shit move.
You do see earlier on that she does have a little bit of like, what I'd call maybe like kid pudge.
Yeah,
You're coming out of like your baby, little kid age. Your body's still sort of growing. So you might look like you got a little bit of pudge or something. Yeah. But, in like a year, you're going to be a foot taller and all that's going to be just stretched out.
Baby fat, which is completely natural. And it's good to know, too, that I think it was here where Frank was, going off on his little historical tangent on what the meaning of the word a la mode was. I'm pretty sure, didn't Richard, like, interrupt him or tell him to, like, stop talking?
Well, I don't think anybody was really listening to it, so they're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, but you do get to see Richard shut him down, and then they kind of, you know, Frank kind of gives him a look.
Yeah, and, well, Richard's being a shithead at this
Yeah,
point.
he's
just
being a real dick.
He's basically saying, you know, ice cream comes from milk, which comes from the cow, which has got a lot of fat in it, which means you're gonna get fat if you eat a lot of it. And people are trying to, like, stop him, like, hey,
Yeah.
like, relax.
Yeah, the mom is, Cheryl's constantly saying, Richard, that's enough. Richard, stop.
But he just keeps going on with it, and he's like, you know, all those, like, Miss America people you watch, do you think they eat ice cream? How do they look? They're probably all really skinny. And it's like,
Yeah.
like,
What are you doing?
yeah, it's kind of like the shittiest thing
Yeah.
imaginable to say.
Yeah, he asks her, you know, Olive, the women that you watch that win, are they fat or are they skinny? And she goes, skinny? And he's like, exactly. Because they're winners.
Yeah. Cheryl does butt in at one point and does say, if you're skinny or you're not, it doesn't matter. Whatever you are, as long as you're happy with yourself, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Which is a good attempt at probably not making her feel bad, but Richard immediately just doubles down.
Yeah,
That's
he
when
does.
he says the Miss America thing of, like, they're all skinny.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's very enraging. It makes me so mad.
Yeah. So the drinks get there, the ice cream gets there, and Olive immediately just says, does anyone want my ice cream? I don't think I'm going to eat it. And Frank and Dwayne jump in and start eating some, and then other people do. Not Richard, though.
They're kind of doing it as a, well, if
this
you're
is
not
so
gonna
good.
if you're not gonna eat it, I guess we'll eat it. Oh, it's so good. I can't believe any little girl wouldn't want to eat this ice cream. So they're really enticing her, you know, to, like, hey, you really wanted this, you know, enjoy it. Don't let what your dad say get to you. And then sure enough, she does go, wait, I do want to bite.
Yeah, she jumps in to eat the rest of it. She's like, don't eat it all.
Yeah, and then her face lights up, and
Richard rolls his eyes.
And Richard rolls his eyes. But I love that because the way that, you know, Frank got both Dwayne and Grandpa to, you know,
No, Grandpa got everybody else.
Grandpa got everyone in to do it. But I love, like, the way that Dwayne got in on it, too. And, you know, you can tell, even now, without having heard him say a single thing, you can tell that he's a good big brother.
Yeah.
And that he loves his sister.
Yeah.
So he definitely sees that his dad is a shithead sometimes.
Yeah. As they go to leave, Cheryl decides, like, oh, I can drive some, because they say they've got to go, like, 600 miles today and then 400 the next day or whatever it is. So they've got to drive, like, 10 hours today and another, like, 50, I don't know, another, like, 5 hours or something the next day, whatever it is. And as she's trying to drive, she can't, like, get the clutch to release, I guess. And he's like, oh, you're not doing it hard enough. Let me try. And then he tries and he can't get it.
That was such satisfaction.
There's a good snappy moment where he's like, you got to push it down harder.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm trying. I'm doing it. And then he does it, and she just outside the window goes, you got to push it down harder.
Such a satisfying moment. If you've ever had someone, like, pull that shit on you, like, telling you to do something, and you're like, I am, and then they do it, and then you wish for moments like that.
Yeah.
Those I told you so moments.
Yeah.
He deserved it for being such an asshole. You've driven stick before, right?
Hardly.
I
Get very frustrated very easily.
Yeah. I remember being a teenager, and I think it was my uncle took me and my brother in his truck once and tried to get us to play around in a parking lot doing the shift gears. So I did it, but then I never touched a stick shift again, and I forgot about it until I went to England, and a friend of mine was like, you should probably practice how to drive out here. Stick shift is like every single car, but also it's on the wrong side of the road, so that's double confusion.
Yeah.
It didn't go well. I was scared.
So they take the bus to a mechanic. the mechanic basically says, look, your clutch is kaput. So with a car this old, we're going to have to order a part, and it's the weekend, so probably Thursday.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, well, we've got to get somewhere
Like now.
tomorrow, or today. Or no, it's still tomorrow at that point. He's like, well, I don't know. And then they're just like, is there like car rentals around here or something? He's like, it's the weekend, so they might be
Yeah,
closed.
they're
He
closed.
says it's the weekend like 3 times.
Yeah.
But then he comes up with this thing, being like, with these old ones, you really only need the clutch for the first gear or two. Once you're in like 3rd gear, it'll just go from
Yeah.
3rd to 4th. So
You can coast.
if you park on hills all the time and you start it in 3rd gear and you can get 15 to 20 miles per hour, you'll be good to
You're
go.
good.
And it's like, well, we're not on a hill, we're
Yeah.
in flat land, so they come up with the genius idea of everybody push. I'll put the car into 3rd gear. Everyone push.
Yeah.
We'll get it going about 15 to 20 miles per hour. Hop in. We're good to
Yeah.
go.
Then one by one, hurl yourselves into this van.
One, I find it very hard to believe that they got it going about 15 miles per hour pushing it.
I don't think so.
But I also don't know shit about cars, so it probably wasn't actually going that fast, obviously, just for the movie thing. But I don't know, maybe you could get it push it going about 15 miles an hour and then jump in. Who knows?
It's such a great it's a great scene, and it's also what they used in like the posters and the DVD cover, is them just kind of having just pushed the van, and then now they're all chasing after it to jump in.
Yeah.
So it's a really kind of iconic little scene, and it's so cute because they make sure Grandpa goes first or stays in the van. Then Olive's next, so she gets pulled into the van. Then it's Cheryl, then it's Frank, and then it's Dwayne.
Yeah.
So they've got like a little system worked out.
Yeah. And also when they all get into the van, this is the first time everybody's kind of like having a good time together. They're all
Yeah,
smiling
they're
and sort of
giggling.
laughing about the situation. So they just kind of have fun with it.
Yeah.
While they're driving, Stan finally hears from Richard. I
Yeah.
said Stan. Richard finally hears from Stan Grossman. He gets a call on his cell phone, and he's trying to answer it, but he's got bad reception while driving on the highway. Again, if you weren't around at the time or didn't have a cell phone at the time, you probably don't know what that's like.
Nope.
I don't even think I had a cell phone in 2006.
I think I just got one, and
I
it
don't
was.
think I had one until 2007, maybe.
I had one for sure because I got mine in college.
Mine's kind of nerdy. The first time I went to an anime convention alone with friends is when I got one so that I could, like,
Keep in contact.
check in or whatever if I needed to.
Was it a flip phone?
Mhm.
Yeah, me too.
Little silver flip phone with a
Same.
little antenna you pull out.
Same. Yeah, I had that.
Probably like a super cheap.
Yeah, it was super cheap.
Here's some minutes or something.
And also, text messages, not a thing.
No.
Oh my god, my parents instilled in me if I even touch that text message button, it's gonna cost like $1,000.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh my god, okay, sorry.
So because they've heard from Stan, they pull over into like a gas station, convenience store place. Richard gets on a payphone. You don't see many of those around anymore. He gets onto a payphone, calls Stan, and you instantly get a sense that something's not going well.
Right.
While he's dealing with that, Olive and Cheryl get out and go into the store. Dwayne stays in the car. Frank is like, okay, I'm going to get out and get something. And Grandpa goes, good. Or he asks Grandpa, do you want anything? He goes, yeah, give me some porn.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? He goes, yeah, give me some of those good magazines. Here's $20 and get yourself something good. This is where he says the slur.
Yeah.
He's like, eat yourself something too. So he kind of like laughs a little bit about it, goes in, he's at the counter. Look, I worked at a gas station for a number of years. We did not sell magazines like this.
Really?
No. We did
Not at all?
No.
I was wondering because they did make it seem like you had to ask the cashier for the porno mags. I remember growing up and seeing them in like small grocery stores, like tucked back away in the back. You didn't carry no porno mags?
No.
What about all those lonely truckers? They just had to use their
By the
imagination.
time I was working, they all have cell phones and internet, so they can just look it up. And, if I worked there maybe like 10 years earlier,
Yeah.
probably.
Those ones that they've got like the fold out, like 3-page
centerfolds.
Centerfolds. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Frank is in there getting some.
And a slushie.
He Grandpa asks him to get some real nasty shit.
Yeah.
He's like, give me that nasty stuff.
Yeah.
So he's just picking random magazines. Says, that one, and maybe that one. Up a little bit. He does get a male
Yeah.
magazine. I don't know what you'd really call it. The gay one, I guess.
The gay one.
I don't know. Well, it's just the male version. Like, we'll just call it like a Playgirl magazine or something.
I think that's what it was called.
No, it was like Buns and Ammo
Oh.
or something like that.
Buns and ammo.
But he's getting these magazines, and he gets himself. So he did get himself a magazine, but we don't really find that out till later. You think he's just getting these magazines for Grandpa. He also gets a little slushie. But while he's doing that, somebody goes, Frank? And he turns around, and it's the student that he fell in love with that led to his spiral and like depression and suicide attempt.
The absolute, like, when I think of being in his situation, that would be the worst thing I could possibly think of happening. Like, you just went through all of this stuff, your life just turned upside down. You just happen to be with your family, basically in the middle of the desert, traveling. What are the fucking odds that at this gas station, while you're buying porno mags for Grandpa, you're gonna run into your ex? Like, what are the odds?
It is a super awkward confrontation. It's
The
not
way-
really confrontation. It's a super awkward conversation.
The way that I would absolutely be, not only would I be pretty mortified, but I would go to such embarrassing lengths to hide, like knocking over bags of chips in an aisle, like trying to hide myself. Ooh,
Well, he didn't see him.
no, yeah.
But they talk a little bit. He does reveal that he's there with the other teacher who he left him for or cheated on him with or whatever, which just makes things even like more difficult for him. And he's like, oh God. And after the very awkward conversation, the student just leaves.
And he is very, very much so purposely trying to have his hands behind his back to not let this guy see that he's got bandages around his wrists.
Yeah.
So he's making sure to keep his hands behind his back. He doesn't want this guy to see what he's purchased, so he's kind of moving around to make sure that he doesn't see. And yeah, just this guy being like, so how have you been? I mean, what's new? What's going on? I heard you. What happened? I mean, did you quit your job? And he's like,
Oh,
yeah, I left. I quit. I left. Obviously he didn't hear what happened. But yeah.
No, I think he did.
Oh,
I
and
think
he's just
it was...
just formalities. Yeah, such an uncomfortable situation, and you can see in Frank's eyes that he's just internally screaming.
Yeah. So before he leaves after buying everything, it comes out just under $20. He does look out, sees the student get in the car with the teacher. The teacher kind of looks back. They both look almost like they're sort of laughing about it. And then Frank's just like, okay. And he leaves. He gets it back into the bus. He just throws the magazines at Grandpa. Grandpa doesn't even move. That's the best part. Alan Arkin's just sitting there.
Yeah.
And Steve Carell just hurls the bag of magazines at him, and he doesn't move or react. He's just sitting there.
He just lets him hit
They
him.
hit him in the chest and fall down, and he's just like, nothing.
Yeah.
Shortly after, Cheryl walks by. Richard's getting off the phone. Richard is like, it didn't work out. They have a sort of thing of like, what the fuck? You said this was a done deal. And he's like, I was told it was a done deal. I don't know.
What are we gonna do?
So they get angrily back into the car and they take off.
Yeah.
And as they're all driving in silence, Dwayne taps on Frank's shoulder, holds his notebook in front of him, and Frank reads it out and goes, "Where's Olive?" You realize Olive's not with them.
There's nowhere to be seen.
She's standing outside of this gas station convenience store, just standing there.
Yeah.
And you see the yellow van come over, open its door, and they're just like, "We're not stopping.
Get in,
Run,
get in, get
run."
in.
She starts running. They pull her in. The people getting gas are just staring at them like, "What the fuck?"
What just happened? Was that a kidnapping or what? It was so funny, but it was so cute too, because she didn't seem panicked at all. Like, she's standing there in front of the gas station, and she's acting like, this is a normal thing. I'm not really too worried about it.
Yeah.
Such a funny thing.
At this point, because they'd all overheard, Grandpa realized that Richard wasn't getting this book deal.
Yeah.
So while they're driving, he kind of goes up front and talks to Richard. And it's like, look, maybe it didn't work out, but you tried your own thing, and most people won't even go that far. So I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
At least you tried to do your own thing. So, a little bit of motivation for him for doing something on his own.
I think he's also trying to get the point across that, you don't have to be a winner all the time. Like, maybe this didn't pan out. That doesn't make you, a loser.
I don't agree with that. I live my life by if you're not first, you're last.
All right. Ricky Bobby.
That's right. So they all end up getting to a hotel for the night.
Kind of like a shitty motel.
Weirdly, for people who are already stressing about money, they get 3 rooms. Frank and Dwayne in one room, Grandpa in his own room, Mom, Dad, Olive supposed to be in a third.
Right.
Olive asks if she could stay with Grandpa. He says fine. They can do more rehearsals for her pageant tomorrow.
And everyone's got double beds.
No, Cheryl and Richard have a single,
a
king-size bed, queen-size bed, whatever it is. But the rest are doubles. So they get in there, and Richard and Cheryl have an argument of her basically being like, you're not bringing in money, we're bankrupt, talking about divorce and stuff, kind of just going at each other. Right next door to them is Dwayne and Frank, and Dwayne is laying on his bed, listening to this happen through the rooms. And Frank is like, don't listen to that, turns on the TV. 2005, who's on TV but good old George W. Bush.
George Bushy.
Someone's favorite president for some reason.
He looks so cute.
You're crazy. Dwayne turns it off immediately, preferring to listen to his parents argue. As he's listening to them argue, he just smiles.
Yeah.
Like a weird thing to be smiling about, that your parents are talking about bankruptcy and all that stuff.
I think he's mostly smiling because he's listening to his mom stand firm and talking to Richard that way.
What it is.
Kind of like, well, good. Now he's getting his, he's getting a little karma back for, the shitty things that he says sometimes.
Yeah. We then see Grandpa and Olive practicing. For some reason, she's doing like a growl face. She's like
crawling on the ground
and like doing like bear claws or tiger claws or something, like real fierce looking. And Grandpa's like, "All right, that's good. We need to get our beauty rest. Let's go to sleep." Richard at this point, or while Grandpa's putting Olive to sleep, he's like tucking her in. She says that she's like worried about tomorrow, like she's scared, nervous about the next day, and he asks why, and she reveals that she's afraid that if she doesn't win, that her dad's not going to love her because she's a loser.
Yeah.
Because all he ever talks about is his 9-step program about being a winner, and if you don't do things, you're a loser. That's all he ever talks about.
It's so heartbreaking too, because she really does. It kind of starts off with her being a little bit vulnerable, and it almost seems like she's trying her best not to cry, but then she does break down when she says, you know, Daddy hates losers.
Yeah.
You know, he only wants winners, and it's really sad, but it's also such a real thing that so many people, especially like in our age range, like that generational trauma of being like, well, I don't want to upset my family, and you know, they're projecting their own insecurities on kids, and everyone just grew up with that. And I think it was a great scene having Grandpa level with her to be like, hey, you know, your dad's not always right, and you're not a loser, you're a winner no matter what. And you know, makes her feel better.
Yeah, he says a loser is somebody who's afraid of winning, so afraid of winning that they don't try.
That they don't even try.
Or so afraid of not winning that they don't even try. And you're going to try, so you're already a winner. Which does help.
Yeah, he
She
makes
gets
her
to
feel better.
sleep.
It's very clear that they have a very good relationship.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of their person in the family. So I love that.
In the middle of the night, Richard gets this wild idea of, you know what? I'm going to go see Stan Grossman. He's in this town not far away. It's like 25 miles away, 23 miles away, something like that we see on a sign. He goes to try and start the van. Obviously, he can't get it going because he can't push it up to 15 miles per hour on his own. So he sees some kids with like Vespas and assumedly pays them to rent one.
I assume so, which again, with them not having a lot of money, seems like
It's
a
very much a last ditch effort.
yeah, poor decision.
So he takes off. We see that happen. We do cut and see Grandpa locking himself in a bathroom and doing some more drugs, them hardcore drugs.
He pulls him out of his little fanny pack.
Yeah.
Little Grandpa fanny pack got drugs in it.
Richard makes it to the place. Again, it's 23 miles away, so let's say it probably takes him about 25 minutes or so to get there, roughly.
It's a slow moving moped.
Yeah.
It's not going real fast.
But it can't possibly take him super long. Anyway, he shows up at this hotel. He tries to call Stan and is like, hey, I'm at the hotel. Where are you? I want to talk. And he uses like a hotel phone, so he must have like tried to call the room, for example. He then tries his cell phone, and as it's ringing, he hears a ringing from behind him somewhere.
Right.
So he follows the sound into like a common area or the lobby or whatever you'd call this at a fancy hotel. And he sees Stan sitting on a couch, look at his phone, see who it is, and then put it on silent.
Yeah.
And Richard walks up behind him, and Stan hears like the ringing through his cell phone. And he turns around, boom! It's Bryan Cranston
Bryan Cranston with a glorious head of hair
and a beard.
and a beard.
So basically, they just talk outside by a pool. Richard's like, okay, what's our next step? If they didn't listen to it, maybe I can talk to them. Where do we go next? What is it? And Stan's just like, you don't understand. I tried to sell this to everyone. Nobody wants it. Period. They don't know who you are. They don't want it. Nobody's doing it. There is no next step. That's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of harsh. Small scene. Richard ends up just leaving at some point. I guess he finally understands that Stan's like, I'm not against you. I literally tried and thought this would be something, but nobody wants it. So, there you go.
No one wants your stupid 9-step program.
Yeah. So Richard goes back home. Everybody's asleep at this point. We then cut to the next morning. Olive comes into the parents' room, wakes them up. Mom, Dad, Mom, hey, wake up. And she tells them, Grandpa's not waking up. So they rush Grandpa to the hospital. While they're all waiting in sort of the lobby, Olive grabs some pamphlets off the wall for like eye tests, eye exams, and it's like, hey,
Just like informational brochures.
who wants to do an eye exam? And they're like, no, put those away, whatever. She doesn't put them away, she keeps them, but she sits down and like relaxes.
She puts them in like a backpack or something.
Cheryl she speaks to Dwayne and Olive, and it's kind of like, look, Grandpa was really old. He had a great life. So she's just sort of readying them for worst case scenario.
Yeah, trying to kind of put the idea in their head that, this may not be the best ending, and we need to be prepared for what might come, and, this is something that might happen soon.
And then the doctor comes out and does inform them that Edwin Hoover has passed away. They tried everything they could, but he is gone. The assumption is that he maybe overdosed, possibly, or quite literally just fell asleep and didn't wake up.
The doctor does say to the family, and I think he did kind of look at Olive at one point, maybe hoping that she would find some comfort in this, but he does say he most likely just fell asleep and then just didn't wake back up.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, that's the way you want to go.
The best part is while he's trying to be sort of somber with the delivery of this bad news, he's like, somebody will be out here in a moment to talk to you about like funeral arrangements, stuff like that. He walks away, not even like 5 feet away from them, turns his head around the corner and goes, Linda!
Yeah.
Just yells for somebody down the hall.
That was it caught me off guard. It was such a quiet, sad scene, and for him to just call out like he's ordering up a line of waffles at the diner was fucking hilarious. And then he just goes on about his way.
Yeah.
Linda!
So Linda comes out. She is there.
She is a bereavement liaison.
Yes. And she's basically telling them, like, hey, we can get you set up with, like, this funeral home. You can make arrangements. You got to fill out all these... fill out this, fill out this, fill out this pink one. Be as detailed as possible. Giving them just a bunch of stuff to do. She is played by Paula Newsome, who... The most recent thing I know for certain we watched her in was she was in season 1 of Barry. She played a detective who was dating Gene Cousineau. If you watch Barry, that'll make sense to you. If you don't, it won't make any sense. But
You should watch that show. It's really good.
it is very good. So Richard is like, well, we already have funeral arrangements for him back in Albuquerque. And she's like, oh, if you're crossing state lines, you have to get permits for that, and it's the weekend, so
That's not going to happen.
And they're like, well, we got to be somewhere by 3, and she's like, oh, well, you're not gonna make that.
What's funny too with her is when she first came out, she was very very cool, calm, and collected, and very professional. I am your bereavement liaison. And the more that she talks to Richard, the more and more like not less professional, but the more like she's
very to the point.
You're not gonna make that. You're not gonna make it by 3.
So Richard just is like, okay, well, can we see the body? And she's like, okay, sure. We'll stop them from taking him downstairs or something. She does at one point out that like other people have died here today.
Yeah, well, she snaps at him.
You.
She snaps at him because like he's getting frustrated, with all this stuff and trying to figure things out. And at one point, she's like, "Do not raise your voice at me," and no, sir, you are not going to talk to me like that. Other people died here.
Yeah.
And she's very sassy now.
Yeah. So she does take the family back to see the body. They don't actually look at the body. He's got like the sheet over him and everything, like you're used to kind of seeing. But they do close the little curtain thing that they've got, the privacy curtains or whatever they're called. And Richard instantly walks over to the window, starts to open the window, and goes, "Okay, Dwayne and Frank, go around front and pull the car around." And they're like, "What?" And they're like, "We're not leaving him here.
Yeah.
We're taking him with us."
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, we're not." And he's like, "Yes, we are. We don't have time to do all this. We're getting to that damn pageant." And he gets everybody on board, and they're just like, okay.
It took Dwayne a hot minute to get on board because I love seeing the panic in his face. Like, wait, what are we doing? I'm sorry, what? And Richard's thrown all that paperwork right in the trash can.
Yeah. So they Frank and Dwayne go outside, pull the bus around. Cheryl and Richard lift up the body to the window. Olive is on lookout.
Olive's on the lookout.
They're just wrapped him in the blanket, basically, pushing him out the window. Cheryl goes outside to try and help. They get the body outside. They stuff it into the trunk, and then they take off.
And everyone's just, this is just what we're doing.
Olive at one point asks, while they're in here, asks Frank if he thinks that there's a heaven, and he gives a very, like, sort of an answer I think I would give to a kid, which is like,
Yeah.
well, it depends on what you think and stuff. And she's like, well, I think that there's a heaven. And he's like, okay, well, do you think I would get in? She's like, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was really cute. Because Frank really has this entire time, even from the very beginning when they are talking about his suicide attempt in front of him, he's always just been very like, yeah, whatever, I'm not bothered. Like, he has no problem saying whatever he's thinking. And I just love, like, her asking him about heaven. You can tell that he really wants to say, fuck no, absolutely not. But he, like, you know, he kind of mellows himself down for her a little bit. So it's not quite as abrasive.
Somebody on the highway cuts them off right after this. Richard hits the horn. And, of course, the bus keeps having to fuck up, and the horn won't stop honking. So now you're just hearing bang, 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 bang.
Our car's done that to me before.
Just randomly honked.
Well, no, like, I laid into the horn really hard once on someone, and then it didn't stop for a little while. And I kept having to, like, hit it, and then I just had to turn the car off and back on, and it worked.
They get pulled over by a police bicycle man. The Chips police. That's a
Mr. Bicycle Man.
That's a dated reference for people. Chips.
The monkey. There's not a monkey in
No.
Chips.
Chips was about
Oh, that's the one that one
highway-
guy was in.
Highway bicycle police.
That one,
Motorcycle cops.
wasn't he Cuban?
I think it was like the California interstate
Yeah, I know who that
highway
is.
police or something like that.
One of them was considered very hot at the time.
Sure.
Anyway.
It was an old TV show that got a movie remade with Dax Shepard and
Oh yeah.
and oh gosh, what's
Was
that
it
guy's name?
was it a Wayne's brother?
No. No, that's Let's Be Cops that you're thinking of.
Oh.
No, it was Dax Shepard and man, what is his name? I can't think of it. He's the best friend in Ant-Man. He was in End of Watch with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh.
Whatever, doesn't matter. I can't think of his name. Anyway, that's totally random tangent. There's Chips. That was a movie. If you want to see it, of course she's looking it up
I want to see this.
so that we can find out exactly who that was. Just scroll down, or you could have clicked cast at the top. Yeah, nope, scroll down. It's right there. Real time searching this up so we can remember who
Michael Pena?
Michael Pena. That's who it is.
Oh.
Anyway, totally random tangent. So don't mind that.
Anyway.
So the cop pulls him over, and he's like having an issue with your horn. He's like, yeah, sorry. The cop eventually gets Rich. He's like, step out of the vehicle. He's like, okay. Richard steps out of the vehicle, and the cop's not even doing anything. The cop just kind of like turns his head while he's waiting for Richard to get out, and Richard just goes, don't. And he's like, don't what? And he's like, nothing. He's like, don't what? Like, do you have something back here? He's like, no, don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
He-
He's like, you know, you're giving me probable
Yeah.
cause to search your
Like,
vehicle right
why
now.
are you acting so sus right now?
Yeah, why? Like,
You could have not
Richard,
said anything.
Just don't say anything.
Idiot.
So the cop tells him, like, put your hands on the car, and everybody in it is like, oh God, what's he doing?
Yep.
And the cop goes and opens the trunk. Clear as day that there's the shape of a body right there.
Yep.
But what falls out is all the porn magazines.
All the porno mags.
Fall out on the ground. And the cop goes, oh,
Oh, this is what you didn't
And
want
he's
me
like,
to see.
you need to come back here. And Richard's like, look, I can explain. And he's like, oh, I love these. He's like, this is my favorite one. And he's just looking at these magazines. He's like, this is my favorite one. Oh, I love this one. And he's like, I see why you didn't want me to look. And the cop just looks up and he like waves at Cheryl and he's like, you got a lovely family, but I understand. And he's
Yeah,
like,
you fucking
"Yeah,
weirdo."
yeah."
Meanwhile, everyone in the car is like having a heart attack. They're like, he for sure sees that dead body back there. We're all going to jail.
This is where we see he flips through the two like straight magazines,
Yeah.
and then he gets to the one that says buns and ammo.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Richard just goes, yeah, something a little different, you
Yeah.
know. And the guy's like, you can keep that one.
Yeah.
And the cop basically goes, I'm gonna take these, and then you have a good day. And he's
Yep.
like, sure, go right ahead, officer.
Bye.
So the cop takes porn magazines as a bribe, basically, and leaves. Again, does not notice the body, clear as day, sitting in the back.
Very, very obviously a body.
So they get on the road again. Or actually, before they leave, we see the cop drive off. Richard gets back in. And then Richard goes, Dwayne and Frank, can you get out and push the car?
Yeah. And Cheryl, the wife, goes, what was that all about? And he was like, I'll tell you once I regain consciousness, because I don't know what the fuck just happened.
Yeah. We're back on the road again, and then we get to see Olive did keep those eye exam things, and she's giving Dwayne the test.
Yeah.
And he's doing like a, what letter is this sort of thing, like the pyramid, whatever.
Yeah. They're just kind of playing around.
And she goes, oh, Mom, Dwayne's got 20/20 vision. And she's like, oh, yeah, good, great. And then she goes, okay, now we're going to do a colorblind test. And she holds up the very first one. It's like a red circle with a green letter A in it. It's the thing where it's all like polka dotty stuff.
Right.
I don't know if the dots matter
I
or if
don't
that's
know.
just like the style that they went with. I don't really know on these exams. I've done them before. I can always see all of the colors, so I'm fine
Me too.
with that. But don't tell anybody that I lie on my driver's test. And I've always kind of squinted a little bit to like reread the last line. Shh. Anyway, she tells Dwayne like, "What letter's in here?" And he's like, shaking his head like, "I don't."
Yeah.
What
What
do you
letter?
mean? And she's like, "There's a letter right here. It's a green letter." And Frank's like, "Yeah, it's green." And he's like, "I don't.
I
What
don't
do you
see
mean?"
anything.
And Frank goes, "Oh." And he writes on his notepad, "What?" And he turns it to Frank, and Frank goes, "I think you might be colorblind." And he's like, "What?" Like, yeah, but why did you react so big? And then he goes, you can see Frank sort of contemplate, like, should I
say
share him
this?
this information or not? And he kind of looks forward, and then he looks back and goes, "You can't be a pilot if you're colorblind."
Yeah.
And Dwayne starts to freak out.
Yeah.
And kind
Very clearly upset.
he's like punching the door or window,
The ceiling.
shaking seats, all that sort of stuff. And Richard already thinks they might be late trying to get there. They're like 25 minutes away or something like that. But they're like, we need to pull over. You need to stop.
Yeah.
Dwayne needs to get out. You need to stop. So they finally pull over, get out. Dwayne runs out into this field, and the first thing we ever hear him, he just screams out, "Fuck! Fuck!"
Just
And
at the
then
top of his lungs.
sort of collapses, and Frank tells him that he thinks that he's colorblind, and that means that he can't fly jets. And the family kind of awkwardly stands there for a moment.
Yeah. They're trying to figure out if is this like a give him space moment? Is this a let's all run up on him kind of thing? And I also kind of got the impression when Olive was first testing him on this colorblind test, I kind of got the impression that he thought like she was messing with him. Like pulling his leg, like, yeah, there's a letter there. Because I feel like he was kind of smiling a little bit at first, like, where?
Well, yeah, because if you can't see the letter,
Yeah.
it all just looks like a circle.
Yeah, so he just thought, I feel like he thought she was kidding. And then once he realized that they were serious about this, he just, all of his thoughts, all of his, he's been doing this vow of silence for so long because of this, because this goal is so important to him. He just breaks down, and it is such a heartbreaking scene. But Paul Dano, so good.
Yeah.
Like, so amazingly good in this scene.
Yeah. Cheryl goes out to try and comfort him and says some things and is like, okay, come on, we gotta go for your sister. And he's like, no, just leave me here. I don't want to go. No, I'm not going. Just leave me. And then he just goes, I hate all of you.
Yeah.
I fucking hate all of you. And then he yells about divorce and suicide and bankruptcy. And she just kind of walks away to give him space. And it's like, I don't know what to do. And Richard's like, okay, well, I'm just kind of worried about the time if we're going to make it. So he goes, all right, Olive, go see if you can do something. And Cheryl's like, no. But Olive just goes
She
anyway.
already goes. She already knows. Like, he's always there for her. She can see that he is really, really upset. And so she's like, you know what? I got this.
And all she does is she goes down there and she just kind of puts her arm around him and lays her head on him a little bit. And he goes, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And he gets up there and he says, I'm sorry. I said those things. I didn't actually mean them. They get in and they're driving to try and get to the thing. They've got like 5 minutes to get there. They get off on this exit that they think is going to take them to the hotel, and it doesn't actually take them to the hotel. It's like looping them around the hotel. So they're kind of lost. They're panicking. They've got like 5 minutes to figure it out. They get off the road. At one point, they go into what they think is the parking lot for the hotel, but it's not. It's just a dead end parking lot for like the beach or something.
And they can't stop.
And they spin in a circle, and Richard just drives onto a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And is just driving on the sidewalk, goes past the hotel, turns around, drives again. Finally, they just stop, and as soon as they stop, the door breaks off, and Frank just full-on sprints straight towards the hotel. Steve Carell is given a Tom Cruise run.
It is the funniest run. He is hands just Barbie Ken style, stick straight, just army running.
He runs, he gets into the hotel. We see a sign that says it's on the second floor. Doesn't think about an elevator or anything, just sprints up the staircase, gets up there, and asks the lady, like, hey, I'm here to register. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, we're closed. And he's like, what?
It's 3 o'clock.
It's 3 o'clock. And then Cheryl shows up with Olive, and they're like, but we got the contestant right here. And she's like, oh, but it's already, and Cheryl goes, it's 3 right now. And she points, and it's like 3:04, 3:05. And like, oh, we just came all the way from Albuquerque, and the lady's like, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
You should have figured out that you needed to be here before 3. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand all these issues we've had. Richard gets on his knees and like begs her. And she's like, my computer's already turned off. And this other guy goes, mine's still on. I'll sign them in. And she just goes, if you want to, it's your time. And he just go, and they're like, oh my God, thank you. He's like, look, it's no big deal. It's 5 minutes. My stuff's still on. I'm not fucking working for these people next year.
Yeah.
So you can get like that. He's like, these people are he literally
these
says they're
suck.
crazy.
Yeah.
He's
This lady,
like, this place sucks.
the lady that was doing the sign-in, who also is a judge, she is just the most southern, uppity pageant mom you can imagine. The higher the hair, the closer to God kind of lady.
Awful.
I know.
Awful.
So she very much so just likes to be in charge and have her own way.
Yeah.
And for that guy to be like, it's literally fine, and her being like,
well, after they get her signed in, Olive gets in line to go meet Miss California, who was actually Miss California at the time. And it's a cute little scene where Olive just
it's my
asks
favorite scene in the movie.
Says, do you like ice cream? She's like, oh my gosh, yes, I love Cherry Garcia. And then she says, like, although technically I think that's like frozen yogurt.
Yeah.
But they walk away and she's like, Mom, did you hear? She eats ice cream. And it's like such a positive moment, being like, yeah, so everything said earlier is, who cares?
She's beautiful. She won. She's, she's thin. And, that was just her one question she wanted to know. But can you eat ice cream?
Yeah.
Of course you can. Yeah. That was so sweet. And it was such a great moment to see her face light up and learning that. So, like, it's okay that I can eat ice cream, too.
Yeah. Richard, at this point, since they're there, has contacted like a mortician service to get Grandpa's body to get him sent back to Albuquerque. So they come and take the body out of the back of the the bus. Although there's a great scene where like, okay, and where's the body? And he opens the trunk, and both of the guys just sort of like,
Oh.
oh, okay,
They just kind of like look at each other in silence.
yeah.
Huh. So that's what you did with it.
So Grandpa gets taken away. The pageant starts. The very first thing is all of these, again, 7-year-olds, very specifically 7-year-olds, coming out in bathing suits. You got, like, one-piece suits, you got two-piece suits, you got whatever. All of them have, like, their hair's got tons of hairspray in it, very poofy.
Pageant hair.
Loads of makeup on. We've seen them getting spray tanned and shit.
Yeah, they're getting spray tans in the back. They're, their hair is just getting teased. The makeup people that are hired are just slathering that shit on.
I'm not gonna stick on the pageant too much. I just find beauty pageants fucking weird.
They are
Like
weird.
top to bottom, weird. I find children's beauty pageants significantly more strange.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I find it very weird to like. You can say at some point that the child enjoys to do something, so that's why they stick with it.
No.
But like most things, if you went with like sports, for example, if you put your child into softball or baseball or volleyball, certainly the first time, even if you ask them like, hey, would you like to play this? And they say yes, they don't know what the fuck they're saying yes to. They're just like, okay, sure. So when you're putting a kid into any of these things, originally, it's because you want them to be in. Which, to a degree of like sports and stuff, isn't so awful or whatever. You can definitely point and be like, it teaches them about like camaraderie, sportsmanship, whatever,
Losing.
stuff like that. But something with beauty pageants, I just don't understand. I do not understand it. And especially children's beauty pageants. I just find incredibly strange. And I do subscribe to the idea of like most, and I feel like this is a common criticism of children's beauty pageants to begin with, is it's not really for the kids, it's the parents. And it's like the
1,000,000%.
parents trying to relive this like thing that they missed out on as a kid or something or whatever. But it's fucking weird. I can't think of, I just don't think there's any like defense you can say of like, yeah, I spray tanned my 7-year-old and put on like eyeliner and like
Fake
mascara
eyelashes.
and foundation and lipstick and whatever. Why are you like dressing them up like they're adults? I just don't get it. It's fucking weird.
It's really weird, and there's a TikTok.
And then you're just like parading them around. It's
yeah,
just so strange.
like a
to me.
dog at a dog
But
show.
I said this. They like the actresses that are used in this, or the kids who maybe are actually beauty pageant people at the time. I don't know. Like they just look like porcelain dolls to me.
Yes.
It's just so. It's fucking. They're creepy. It's creepy.
It's creepy. There's a TikTok that was going around that was like, I think a mom posted it. It was with her like pageant kid, and she very much so was dressed and made to look like an older woman. And someone made a comment about how many saves to favorites that video had to just like grown adult men, or just like really weird random saves that nobody has any business saving it for. But I made a note. I mean, this is my personal opinion, but I think if people, I guarantee you there are people who are complaining about drag queens reading books to children that have kids doing pageants. Like if you took that effort in opposing something that is sweet and kind and innocent and helpful to your weird shit that you're doing, sexualizing your kid, I mean, what? How does your brain work like that?
Yeah. as I said, I don't want to stick on the topic too much because there's a lot that kind of goes into that, and that's not really the place to talk about it. But I generally agree with you to some degree.
Yeah.
There's going to be loads of conversations you can have about beauty pageants, which, again, I think this movie is not pro beauty pageants.
No.
I think it's quite clear that it's actually very critical of them
Yeah.
in the way that it depicts the pageant, from the lady who's there to sign up and being like, no, you should have been here on time, and it's like really like kind of mean and grumpy, to the guy who does help them, to saying these people are crazy,
Yeah.
to the very first time we hear where they're like, this 7-year-old was on diet pills and had to give up her win because of it, to seeing these kids being spray tanned, to having their hair put up in like this crazy thing, to seeing them literally parade out in front of everybody in like bathing suits and stuff, when it's like, these are like children. Why are you can make an argument to be like, well, don't sexualize it, but you are sexualizing it by doing those things. So it's already like, it's inherently a thing like that. It's about your physical appearance. And then there's more stuff. There's this one bit where I guess I must have subconsciously picked up on this, but I don't think I ever really realized it till you asked about it. There's one point where Richard is sitting in the crowd and he's kind of watching this, and he is sort of like, clearly he's never done one of these things or anything before, because he's kind of like looking at the stage and watching kids and kind of looking around at everybody like clapping and cheering and kind of being like this. He's kind of got the look on his face like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But then he leans over to this guy sitting next to him, this guy who looks kind of like a biker or something.
Yeah, like a biker dude.
He's got like a jean jacket or a vest on with like badges and stuff. And the guy and Richard leans over and goes, "You got a kid up here?" And the guy pulls out like headphones or earplugs, and he just looks over at him and he goes, "Is this your first time?" And you asked me a question about that, and I go, you were like, is that supposed to mean that he does have a kid there? And I go, no, I don't think he doesn't have a kid there. I think he's there
just
to watch it in like the creepy way, and he didn't hear Richard's question because of the things. So when he asked, "Is this your first time?" Cool, sort of thing. He was like, "There's two of us here who are like into this."
Spectator sport.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that gave me the. I feel like I was joshing at first, but then when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, then that guy definitely is just there and does not have a kid in that. And I don't know. I really hope that is not just something that you can just
that you can just show up.
Just walk up off the street and be like.
I feel like you could. I mean, if you're just watching, don't they do these things at like public events, like at a?
Well, they do.
I almost said rodeo. I don't know, a state fair or something.
They do like small things at state fairs, but for the most part, they're like basically just little conventions.
I don't know. It's fucking weird. It's just weird.
It's weird.
There's no not being weird about it.
Yeah, I guarantee you, all of the girls I knew when I was a kid that were in pageants, probably very much so, resented their parents at some point.
Yeah. So they get there, and you can see Olive when she's first being like presented, that all these other girls are kind of what Richard was saying in the beginning of like they look like they're thin, like they don't eat anything. They've all got tons of makeup and stuff on.
All spray tanned.
Olive doesn't have like any of those things.
Yeah.
She's in this like one-piece bathing suit thing. Again, she's kind of got a little bit of like baby fat kind of going on. Her hair's just back in like a long ass ponytail. She's got long ass hair.
She has really, really long hair.
But she doesn't really have like tons of makeup or anything on.
She doesn't have any makeup on.
She's just kind of like there.
And it's interesting too when you see her lined up with all of these other girls. All of the other girls are all posing, like their stance is one pose or another that's clearly been trained. You know, hands on your hips, hands behind your back. You know, leaning your leg out, and she's just literally just standing there.
Yeah. And we then do see Frank and Dwayne are out on like a pier, just talking with each other. They definitely connect a lot more at this point.
Especially now that he's talking.
Yeah. And Frank basically said, or while they're talking, Dwayne just basically says, like, do what you love, fuck the rest.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out a way to fly. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything else. Which is, pretty nice sentiment.
Yeah.
They then go inside, and we see Frank and Dwayne enter the room in which the pageant's happening, and immediately exit the room.
Yeah, they couldn't take it. It was also a really, really great moment when they were on the pier. Frank is sensing from Dwayne about, he's at a weird place in life. He's at that age and all that. But it's so funny because Frank says something like, stuff might seem stressful now, but you're not even in the depth.
he mentioned, he's like, yeah, you like this guy, but like he did all of his best work when he was suffering.
Yeah,
and,
Nietzsche.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, no.
It wasn't him. It was somebody else. And he's like, and he might be considered like the best writer since Shakespeare, but even he was like, after he got out of the period where he was like dealing with a lot of issues and suffering the most, that he realized that's when he did the best stuff.
Yeah.
Because Dwayne says, I wish I could just sleep till I was 18. He goes, but you're going to miss high school. That's peak suffering.
Yeah. You're not going to miss all that suffering.
You don't want to miss that.
Yeah. You got to soak that shit in. And it's so funny because he's just leveling with him, and Dwayne's, he's cracking up now and laughing and being like, you know what, you're right. I guess this is, what this age is supposed to be all about.
So Richard, after seeing everything kind of going on in the pageant, goes backstage, finds Olive, and says to Cheryl, I don't want her to do this. I don't want her to go out on stage. They're just going to laugh at her. Everybody else was cheering for the other girls, but when she stood up, nobody was really saying or cheering anything. So they clearly don't think that she belongs here or fits in. Dwayne, similarly, is trying to go backstage. He just walks by a bunch of people, and he's like, somebody goes, sir, are you supposed to be here? And he goes, no.
No. Where's the dressing room?
No, fuck you. And then he goes, and some little kid's like, where are you supposed to be here? And he goes, where are the dressing rooms?
Yeah.
Just where are the dressing rooms? And
Really?
he shows up, and he also goes, I don't think she should go out there. They're going to make fun of her. I don't want her to go out there. And Olive's hearing all this. They're only like a foot behind her. And you can see she's kind of contemplating it on her face, listening to what they're saying. And then the person who's supposed to like wrangle her back on stage shows up and goes, okay, you got to be ready. Are we going? And Cheryl bends down and goes, look, if you don't want to do this, we can leave. You tried. We can go. And she kind of has a moment to herself, and she puts on this top hat, gets up, and decides to go out on stage. So she goes out on stage. The rest of the family goes and sits in the audience. And it's the talent portion. We've been seeing people sing, dance. Somebody yodeled. One kid was doing like somersaults and stuff and whatever.
Yeah, like contortionist shit.
Yeah.
And at this point, we still don't know what her talent is.
We don't know what she's gonna do.
Yeah, we don't know what she's doing. What her and Grandpa practice.
And that's the great part.
Yeah.
And when she gets up there, the MC announces Olive Hoover, and she's going to do a dance. And before she starts, she gets the microphone and goes, I would like to dedicate this to my grandpa who showed me all these moves. And the guy's like, oh, that's sweet. Where's your grandpa now? And she goes, in the trunk of our car.
It's like he's like, you can see on his face he's trying to register if that's a joke,
Yeah, he's
or
like, what?
he's like, okay, well, anyway, take it away.
So she starts to dance, and everybody's a little bit confused at first because the song that starts playing is Super Freak by Rick James. So you just hear, she's a very kinky girl, and she's like spanking her butt on both sides, like doing an alternating.
And she's wearing a top hat and what looks like just like a little.
She kind of looks like Annie Hall.
She does look like Annie Hall.
But just kind of with a top hat. Maybe that was intentional, I don't know.
And then
but it's a little vest, a red tie, white like button-down shirt, and then what basically is like a tracksuit version of like pants or whatever. And she's dancing, and she's like spanking herself, and everybody's kind of like, what? And she's just doing this dance and like pelvic thrusting and all this stuff that's kind of like embarrassing, but
Yeah.
it's hilarious to watch.
Right.
It's very funny.
She's smiling the whole time she's doing it too. She's having a ball.
And then the twist comes,
And then
and
the
she
twi-
gets up on the very tip of the stage, and her pants are rip away. She rips off her pants, and she's wearing these like frilly shorts. I don't know what you'd call them. They've got like
In dance they're called spankies. They're like basically like a athletic booty short.
yeah, but they got like
Yeah, she's got
frills or
ruffles
something
on them.
Ruffles, yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
So she rips them off. She throws her pants in the crowd. Everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, what is happening?
What I love is the reaction, and I feel like it might be genuine reaction because Miss California probably wasn't an actress or anything.
No.
The main judge lady, who's the shithead we've seen earlier, is like revolted by it, like,
Right.
"Oh my god," because she's basically doing like a striptease.
Right.
Miss California, in every shot we see, she's laughing.
She's like having
She's like, she's totally into it.
she's enjoying it so much. She is so rooting for her.
Which is hilarious. I love that part.
Yeah.
So she keeps going. She takes off like her shirt. She like whips it around, throws it at the judge.
Yeah.
The judges. The tie she puts behind her butt and does like
She does, like,
a
the floss thing. She has a little tank top underneath what she ripped off, too. So she's got a little sweatband around her head.
Yeah. And people start to get up and leave. Some people boo. One person yells, "You suck."
Yeah.
And Frank is like, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you."
Yeah.
He
I'm
literally
gonna
is like,
I'm gonna
kill
find
you."
that man and kill him.
And then he stands up and he starts clapping.
Mm-hmm.
And then Richard gets up and starts clapping, and Cheryl does, and Dwayne does. They all get up and start clapping. And while the dance is still going on, the judge comes over to Richard and is like, "You better stop her.
Yeah.
You gotta get her to stop." And Richard's like, "No. What?
Yeah.
Why? No." And so the judge then goes over to the MC and is like, "You need to get her off stage now. Get her off stage." So he tries to go and get her. And Richard goes up there, runs on stage, pushes the guy away.
Yeah.
And then the judge is like, "You need to get your daughter out of here now." And he's like, "Fine." And he kind of walks over to her, and she's still just dancing.
She's still having a time.
And Richard just decides to join in. He starts
Yeah.
doing some pelvic thrusts and dancing too, and he's getting into it. Frank and Dwayne both run up on stage and start dancing.
They
as
start
well.
dancing.
So everybody just gets into it. Cheryl gets on stage. They're all just dancing again. Miss California is like loving it,
Loves it.
just having a good time. Everybody else is
And
creeped out.
the DJ guy that we liked from earlier.
Well, I'll get to that. The music eventually stops. Everybody stops dancing. The DJ, who is the guy who signed them in earlier, claps for them.
Yeah.
Somebody else kind of claps. And then the creepy guy that Richard talked to earlier stands up and goes, "Fuck yeah!"
I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. I think our suspicions were right.
That part cracks me up. He stands up and he's like, "Fuck yeah!"
I feel like doesn't he do like the little the
Oh, he might.
the
Like
rock on
rockers,
hands.
Maybe.
he liked it way too much.
We then cut. They're all sitting outside of like this office. The judge is talking to like a police officer. He comes out and goes, "Look, we're gonna let you go, but you can never sign her up for any beauty pageants taking place in the state of California ever again,
Never.
ever." And Frank just turns and goes, "I think that'll work.
I think we can do that.
I think that's a good deal."
Yeah. I think we're okay with that. It's such a cute scene too. Them all sitting in the seats. They're all kind of like sitting like in height
On a
order.
little, like bench.
Yeah, on a little bench, and they're all just kind of like sitting by height. It's super, super funny. But yeah, they're like, yep, we're okay. We're good.
Yeah, we'll leave.
This is the one and only time we'll ever do this.
They get out there. They've fixed the door on the bus. They open up the trunk. They all kind of soak in that Grandpa's not there anymore.
Yeah.
They pack up the things. They do say that they think Grandpa would have been really proud of Olive for what she did.
I think she agrees.
Yeah, and then they all get into the bus and they drive back home, and that's the end of the movie.
That's the end.
It's a long shot of the bus going off the highway, and it ends.
Yep. On the way back home. Oh, not before we see them push the bus
Oh yeah,
off.
they gotta push the bus one more time.
Gotta push it one more time so we see everyone jumping in. Just this time without Grandpa in there.
Yeah. So that was Little Miss Sunshine. I love this movie. I think it's got a lot of heart. It's a great time. It's very funny. There's small stuff. Again, I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I don't think I ever consciously connected that the guy in the beauty pageant, for example, is like a creep.
A creeper.
So there's still things to kind of pick up. The small things are great. It's definitely worth checking out. It's just great. It's a very, very, very good movie. Even if you have issues with like some of the words that they use in it or something, like if that's going to prevent you from watching a movie, I think you have bigger issues to deal with. But
I think you can still enjoy
very
it.
much recommend watching this movie if you've never checked it out. Of course, we've spoiled it here, so
Of
hopefully
course.
you have seen it. But if not, go watch it, because
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things that we didn't actually talk about or missed out on, and
Yeah.
whatever.
I think for my movie pick, I think I got exactly what I wanted out of it. I wanted something that was very feel good, something that gave me some summer vibes, and yeah, like you said, there were so many things that I haven't seen the movie in such a long time that like it was almost like watching it for the first time
Yeah.
again. So funny.
Yeah.
So great. So I definitely recommend. I'm very happy with my choice this week.
So, yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
We'll be back next week with something else.
Your choice.
My choice next week. I'm not quite sure what I want to do yet. If I want to follow up in a theme of like summery-ish feeling movies,
Yeah.
we'll see. But you can follow us all over the place: Instagram, Facebook, all that sort of stuff at COAS_podcast, Chicken on a Stick podcast, YouTube, Chicken on a Stick podcast. Find us there. We're always posting stuff, sharing things, that sort of stuff. And then wherever you're listening to this, give it a rating, give it a like, leave some comments, leave some love. All that stuff is very much appreciated.
Let us know if you've got any summer movies that you love or movies that make you think of summer.
Yeah. But thank you again for listening.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.